guys, Evan Ork here, back in a video. Today we're going to be doing a review on the Bandai -1 figure. This is going to be one of the first figure reviews concerning a figure that I got this last Christmas. So there'll be a few more figure reviews to come after this one. So let's get into the first thing I like about this guy, which is the detail. The detail about this figure is very, very good, and it's obviously because this Godzilla is probably one of the most scaly Godzillas we've ever seen in the history of Godzilla designs. You look at a lot of the previous Godzilla films, a lot of them maybe have some smooth textures. There are a few with some textures where it's very scaly, like perhaps Shin Godzilla or the original 1954, but this one is trying to do a reboot 1954, so it's also going to be very scaly, and that's where the details come into play. So we see a lot of these disproportionate sized circles and hives all across his body. We see it here, how some of them even have a yellow color a little bit, and besides the gray color, but that's more of a paint job thing. Facial detail is very good, especially from the front. It's very reminiscent to the film. Spine detail is quite nice, though this is perhaps a little less detailed because it's more smooth. But yeah, overall, the scales on this guy are very, very good and very reminiscent of the original design, so that's pretty much an A+. Let's get into the next thing I like about this figure. The next thing I like about this figure is the paint job, which is slightly above average. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things that I love about the paint job is that where there are hives, it's more yellow, like a sickly yellow color, blended in well with the overall gray color that Godzilla has. So we see that in the hives that are here, we see them on his shoulder here, so there's little bits of yellow all over, and I really think that's such a small detail in connection to the paint job, but one that really fits the overall design. Now, there aren't really any booming colors. I guess on a technical note, I maybe would count the red in his mouth here, but it's primarily one color, and that's why I'm not really giving it a major paint job. I just think it's cool how they blended in some colors in connection to the hives. Let's get into the next thing I like about this figure. The next thing I like about this figure is the articulation. The articulation on this guy is a solid average. As you might expect, a lot of the newer Bandai figures really don't do a lot of articulation as they used to in comparison to the 90s when they started coming out. This is no exception. So I've always said that Bandai should have at least 4 joints of articulation, and this guy has exactly 4. He has the arms, which go 360, and the legs as well. Overall, this is a solid articulation point. It's not too great, it's not even good, it's just solid. So that being said, let's get into the cons of this figure. So when it comes to the cons of this figure, I really only have 2 cons. Nothing crazy. The first con is the articulation. I know that I said the articulation was a pro, but as I always do, I also count it as a con simultaneously if there is a glue seal. And lo and behold, there is a glue seal. It's right here on the tail. The tail has a glue seal. I really think that if they had got rid of the glue seal here, perhaps made another joint for the tail here and the head, you would have had around 7 joints of articulation. Not only would the articulation have been great, but you just wouldn't have this overall annoyance of, wow, another figure with a glue seal. There really should never be a glue seal on a figure. Never understood the point of it, and it really just takes away from so much. Next con I would give is really more of a nitpick, but this figure doesn't have any trouble standing, but if you were to lift him up and, you know, put his feet together, this one, I don't know if it was the way it was packaged. These 2 feet seem like they're kind of like closed into each other a little bit. So they don't perfectly, you know, the smooth surface where they're supposed to stand, they kind of lean off of it a little bit. So the vinyl is a little bit bent in that regard. The reason why that's a nitpick is because it's a little obvious if you wanted to ever set the camera at a low angle where you show his feet. I understand that not all the versions of this guy you might get will have this. This is just kind of a me issue. So I still thought of addressing it in case you wanted to know the risks of getting it and having it be poorly packaged. So in any case, I would rate this guy a 9.2 out of 10. It's a very, very good Bandai figure, and I'm glad I got it right after the movie. I think they spent no time waiting to release this figure after the movie, and I really appreciate that big time. So anyways, you guys should still get this while it's still cheap. Hope you enjoyed this figure review. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys later, and bye-bye.